I'm gonna tell you guys why I got this instead of something like this. Yo dudes, I'm JustMerko and I decided to get an XLR mic setup to start off with compared to a USB mic setup that most people pick at the beginning of their streaming careers. Now before I get into the video, this is just my opinion on why I would recommend an XLR mic setup to start off with compared to a USB mic setup, but you might have different opinions, you could disagree, that's fine, it doesn't really matter. Now the reason I chose an XLR mic setup is that it's a pretty similar price to what I would have gotten with a USB mic. Originally I was going to get the Elgato Wave 1 with the shock mount and pop filter. It costs about the same amount of money, and in total that would cost like $300 Canadian, and that's pretty expensive for a USB mic, but that's what I wanted because it had the software. So I started looking at XLR mics and seeing what options I had. Now I've watched a lot of Alpha Gaming, so I've seen a lot of his videos on mics, USB mics, XLR mics, and all of that jazz. So there's a reason that I chose the Blue Ember. He highly recommends it as a good starting XLR mic, and it's great quality. He compared it to the Blue Kiwi that he uses on stream, and essentially it sounds the same when you have to go through the streaming process and encode and compress all of the things that go on. So I started with the Blue Ember. That's about $130 Canadian, which is cheaper, but there's still other parts that I have to get. Now for my interface, I was originally looking for the Behringer Q802, but unfortunately it was out of stock like everywhere, and I think it would be about $150. So if you add those two together, that's about $300, but you still don't get the pop filter and the shock mount. So you would pay a bit extra, but it would still be at about the same. So I started looking at a audio interface instead of an audio mixer. And the thing I'm losing out on is control. So I don't have much EQ, I can't do anything with compression, which kind of sucks. That's what I wanted in the beginning. But if this does take off and I do start making money, I can upgrade that without having to throw anything out, which is the plus side about XLR mics. I ended up getting the Behringer Euphoria UM2. It's an audio interface. Here, let me show it. This is the Behringer Euphoria UM2. It's some little audio interface. All you really get is a mic gain, an XLR input. You also get another jack input along with a gain for that. There's an output fader for that as well. But that's about it. That's all it really has. So I got the Behringer UM2 for 60 bucks. So in total, that's $200 or just under $200 without tax for both of those. And then keep in mind, you do need to get a cable, but that's about $10. It's not that big a deal. And then you're basically set up. And then also, if I want to go with what I wanted to go with the Elgato, a pop filter and shock mount, I could easily get that. I got a pop filter for about 15 bucks and then the shock mount for like 30 bucks. So in total, that's actually less than what I would have needed to pay for the Elgato with the shock mount and pop filter. And it's great because there's upgradability with this type of setup. So if I really wanted to, I could go for a better mic, which I probably don't need, but you know, hey, maybe I'm rolling in money. But I can definitely upgrade my audio interface into an audio mixer or maybe even a Go XLR at some point, and I'll actually have even more control. So that's the reason that I decided to choose XLR over USB to start off with. And if you really want that control that you can get with an audio mixer, you don't always need a mixer. I know there's a software that essentially acts as a mixer, and you can put your mic input into that software and adjust the EQ and compression and all that. It's probably not as great as if you were to have a hardware actual audio mixer, but it still works. And that's what I'm actually using. I'm using Voicemeeter Banana. I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to use it. So now I'm gonna do a comparison between a USB mic, which is gonna be the Blue Snowball, and a XLR mic, which is the Blue Ember that I've been using. The reason I'm using the Blue Snowball instead of another USB mic that's more expensive or a bit better is that if you go for something more expensive, you could probably do with getting an XLR setup. It's not as expensive as some people make it out to be, especially if you go with like beginner parts. You don't need a mixer, you just need an interface, which in general are pretty cheap. And you can go for any type of mic. I'm going with the Blue Ember, which is 130 bucks, but this is a starter mic it's more of like a mid-tier mic. You could definitely go for a cheaper mic under $100, which you'd be able to pay for an XLR mic setup for the same price as a USB mic setup. So I'm going with the Blue Snowball because this in general is always going to be cheaper than if you go for like an XLR mic setup. So I'll do some comparisons when I'm close to the mic, at a decent distance away from the mic, when I'm loud, when I'm soft, and you guys can do the comparison and listen for yourselves. This is me speaking into the Blue Ember at a normal voice at a decent distance away. This is me speaking into the Blue Ember at a loud voice at a decent distance away. This is me whispering into the Blue Ember at a decent distance away. This is me speaking into the Blue Ember at a medium volume close to the mic. This is me speaking into the Blue Ember at a loud volume. This is me whispering into the Blue Ember right up against the mic. Now, I bet that sounded pretty good, but now let's see how the Blue Snowball sounds. This is how I sound talking at a normal voice into the Blue Snowball at a decent distance away. This is how I sound getting loud with the Blue Snowball at a decent distance away. This is how I sound talking quietly or whispering into the Blue Snowball at a decent distance away. This is how I sound talking at a normal voice right into the Blue Snowball. This is me getting loud with the Blue Snowball at a close range. This is me whispering or talking quietly into the Blue Snowball at a close distance. Okay, now that you guys have heard a comparison between the two mics, you guys can see for yourselves what you think. Obviously, I think the XLR mic sounds better. Overall, what I believe is that if you want to upgrade just from some crappy headset mic and you want to invest in a cheap USB mic or maybe mid-tier USB mic like the Blue Snowball, go for that. It's probably worth it. It's going to be cheaper than an XLR setup, but it's not going to be a high-end USB mic. And if you're thinking of going for a high-end USB mic, such as the HyperX Quadcast or the Blue Yeti, I think you should definitely go for an XLR mic setup. The only exception is maybe the Elgato because it has the software, which is really cool. I wanted to use it, but I couldn't get the mic, so I went for the XLR setup. But if you're going for one of those higher tier USB mics, definitely go for an XLR setup. You can get a cheap XLR setup for about the same price, and you have the upgradability. So if I want to ever upgrade down the line, I can. But with a USB mic, you don't really have that privilege. Once you want to upgrade, you have to trash the mic, or you could use it with an interface, but you won't be able to have all of the capabilities at use. You can't really upgrade it with a USB mic because it'll just use the hardware that's in the USB mic and just ignore if you upgraded and got an audio interface. It'll just say, screw that, I'm going with what I have in the mic. So that about wraps up this video. Yeah, XLR versus USB, boom. I'll be seeing you guys in the next video, whatever it may be. I'm still unsure what I'm doing. I'm doing some gaming videos. I'm doing some of these kind of videos. We'll see how it goes, but I thought this was pretty fun, and you guys let me know what you thought about it. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe if you liked the video and you want more content like this. And also, I stream pretty often on Twitch. If you guys are feeling generous, you can go down in the description, click the link, and follow me. I'd really appreciate that. It'd mean a lot. Anyways, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you next time. Have a nice